History is often shaped not only by wars, but by the minds that control them. In the 19th century, Europe was a continent of rival kingdoms, fragile alliances, and shifting power. In this environment, one man changed the political map forever. Otto von Bismarck. Born in 1815 in Prussia, Bismarck was not destined to be a hero of the battlefield. He was a strategist of power, a master of politics, and a man who understood that nations are built not only with ideas, but with discipline and calculation. At that time, Germany did not exist as a unified country. Instead, there were dozens of independent German states, each with its own ruler, army, and interests. Many dreamed of unity, but dreams alone never build nations. Bismarck believed unity required strength, not speeches, not idealism, power. In 1862, he became Prime Minister of Prussia. Soon after, he delivered a famous message. The great questions of the time would not be decided by speeches and majority votes, but by iron and blood. This was not a call for chaos, it was a strategy. Bismarck's first step was diplomacy. He isolated Austria politically, ensuring no major power would support it. Then came the Austro-Prussian War of 1866. It was short, decisive, and calculated. Prussia won quickly, and Austria was removed from German affairs. But Bismarck did not seek destruction. He avoided humiliating Austria, understanding that today's enemy could be tomorrow's ally. This was Realpolitik, politics guided by reality, not emotion. Next came the final step. France. At the time, France under Napoleon III feared a strong Germany. Bismarck used this fear carefully through diplomatic maneuvering and the famous Ems dispatch. Tensions escalated until France declared war in 1870. The Franco-Prussian War united the German states against a common enemy. Victory was swift and decisive. In 1871, in the Palace of Versailles, the German Empire was proclaimed. Germany was now a unified power, and Bismarck became its first chancellor. But building a nation is harder than winning wars. Bismarck understood that unity must be protected. He strengthened industry, stabilized the economy, and introduced one of the world's first social welfare systems: health insurance, accident insurance, and pensions. His goal was simple: a strong state needs a stable society. He also built a complex system of alliances across Europe to prevent war. Ironically, the man who used war to unite Germany spent the rest of his career trying to preserve peace. Bismarck ruled with authority, discipline, and precision. He was respected, feared, and sometimes misunderstood. He did not chase popularity, he chased stability. In 1890, Kaiser Wilhelm II forced Bismarck to resign. Without his balance and diplomacy, Europe slowly moved toward tension. Less than 25 years later, the continent would fall into World War I. History remembers Bismarck not as a conqueror, but as an architect of power. He proved that nations are not built by chance. They are built by strategy, patience, and the will to act when the moment arrives. Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor, the man who forged Germany. Ever wondered how one person's actions could echo through history and set the stage for a world war? Today, we're diving deep into the complex legacy of Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor of Germany. When he was dismissed in 1890, it wasn't just the end of an era for one man. It was a turning point for all of Europe. Let's explore how the world he built began to unravel, paving the road to 1914. For nearly 30 years, Bismarck had been the master puppeteer of European diplomacy. His primary goal was to protect the newly unified German Empire, which he had forged through a series of brilliant, albeit ruthless, political and military moves. He understood that Germany was a new power, surrounded by suspicious and potentially hostile neighbors. France, in particular, was bitter after its defeat in the Franco-Prussian War and the loss of Alsace. So, how did Bismarck keep the peace? He created a dizzying web of alliances, a system so complex that only he seemed to fully understand it. Think of it as a diplomatic Jenga tower. His masterpiece was the reinsurance treaty with Russia, a secret agreement that ensured Russia would stay neutral if France attacked Germany. He also maintained the Triple Alliance with Austria-Hungary and Italy. The core idea was to isolate France and prevent a two-front war against Germany, which he saw as the ultimate nightmare scenario. He famously said that the great questions of the day would be decided by iron and blood, But once Germany was unified, he became a man of peace, dedicated to preserving the status quo. He wanted to ensure that Germany was a satiated power with no further territorial ambitions. But then, in 1888, a new Kaiser came to the throne. Wilhelm II, young, ambitious, and impulsive. Wilhelm had very different ideas about Germany's place in the world. He chafed under Bismarck's cautious, fatherly guidance. He wanted Germany to have its place in the sun and pursue a more aggressive foreign policy, what was known as Weltpolitik, or world policy. The clash between the old, cautious Chancellor and the young, headstrong Emperor was inevitable. In 1890, Wilhelm forced Bismarck to resign. The pilot, as a famous cartoon of the time depicted, was dropped from the ship. With Bismarck gone, the delicate balance he had maintained for decades quickly fell apart. The new leadership, led by Leo von Caprivi, made a fateful decision. They allowed the reinsurance treaty with Russia to lapse in 1890. They thought it was too complicated and contradicted Germany's alliance with Austria. This was a colossal blunder. Bismarck had warned that this would push Russia into the arms of France, and he was absolutely right. Feeling isolated and snubbed by Germany, Russia began looking for a new ally. And who was waiting with open arms? France. The two nations, a democratic republic and an autocratic monarchy, had little in common ideologically, but they shared a common fear and distrust of the rising power of Germany. By 1894, they had formed the Franco-Russian alliance. Who's like that Bismarck's worst nightmare had come true? Germany was now facing the very real possibility of a two-front war. The diplomatic Jenga tower was wobbling. Meanwhile, Germany's Weltpolitik was kicking into high gear. Under Kaiser Wilhelm II, Germany embarked on a massive naval buildup, led by Admiral von Thier. The goal was to build a fleet that could challenge the mighty British Royal Navy. This was a direct threat to Great Britain, an island nation whose security and empire depended on its naval supremacy. For centuries, Britain had maintained a policy of splendid isolation, avoiding permanent alliances in Europe. But Germany's naval ambitions forced Britain to rethink its strategy. The growing German threat pushed Britain to mend fences with its old colonial rivals. In 1904, Britain and France signed the Entente Cordiale, settling their colonial disputes. While not a formal military alliance, it was a clear signal of warming relations. Then, in 1907, Britain and Russia did the same, forming the Anglo-Russian Entente. This completed the Triple Entente: France, Russia, and Great Britain. Europe was now divided into two massive, heavily armed camps. On one side, the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. On the other, the Triple Entente. The complex web of checks and balances that Bismarck had so carefully constructed was gone. In its place was a rigid system of two opposing blocks. Any conflict between two nations now had the potential to drag all the major powers into war. The flexibility of Bismarck's system was replaced by a dangerous rigidity. Domestically, Bismarck's legacy was also mixed. He created the first modern welfare state, with health insurance, accident insurance, and old age pensions. He did this not out of pure kindness, but as a political strategy to win the loyalty of the working class and weaken the appeal of socialism. However, his Kulturkampf, or cultural struggle against the Catholic Church, and his anti-socialist laws created deep divisions within German society. He also fostered a political culture that relied on a strong, authoritarian leader, rather than on democratic institutions like the Reichstag, the German parliament. This authoritarian tradition made it easier for the Kaiser and his military advisors to dominate foreign policy after 1890. There were few effective checks on their power. When the July crisis erupted in 1914 after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the German leadership, feeling encircled by the Triple Entente, gave Austria-Hungary a blank check of support. This reckless decision, born from the fear of a two-front war that Bismarck had worked so hard to prevent, was one of the key steps that plunged Europe into the catastrophe of World War I. So, was Bismarck responsible for the First World War? No. That's too simple. The world of 1914 was not the world of 1890. But his successors failed to understand the principles of his diplomacy. They abandoned his caution, dismantled his alliance system, and pursued an aggressive policy that antagonized their neighbors. They inherited the powerful German state that Bismarck had built, but lacked his skill and prudence to manage it. In the end, the very system designed to protect Germany became a trap. The intricate balance of power Bismarck had created was a personal tour de force, but it was not a sustainable system for his less capable successors. His shadow loomed large over the path to 1914, a stark reminder of how quickly a carefully constructed peace can unravel. What do you think? Could World War I have been avoided if Bismarck had remained in power? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more.